Here's a sentence you've heard me say many times. Katie Porter has done it again. A top executive from McKinsey & Company appeared before Representative Katie Porter and the House Oversight Committee today to answer questions about the consulting firm's role in the opioid crisis. The New York Times reports at least 22 McKinsey consultants had worked for both Purdue and the FDA since 2010, even as McKinsey served FDA offices charged with approving new drugs and monitoring their safety. It also advised Purdue Pharma on its interactions with the agency. Internal McKinsey documents, first reported by the New York Times, show that the firm cited its connections to regulators when seeking more work at pharmaceutical companies. In a 2014 email to Purdue's chief executive, one consultant stressed who we know and what we know, specifically highlighting the firm's work for the FDA. And here is how Representative Katie Porter approached that.
Well, Mr. Sternfeld, shouldn't the FDA have been allowed to make its own decision about whether or not your company's work for Purdue did or did not create a conflict? Why should you and your company be the decision maker here?
We aren't the
Who
sole
made you
decision-maker in
conflict
this.
of interest czar for the United States government?
We're not the conflict of interest czar.
Okay, so let me
Congresswoman.
ask
We
you,
follow-
did you disclose to the FDA your McKinsey's work at the same time? Did you disclose to the FDA that McKinsey was working at the same time it was working for the FDA, that it was working for Purdue? Did you disclose that to the FDA?
We made clear in multiple instances that the individuals involved had experience in both pharmaceuticals and opioids.
Reclaiming my time. Mr. Sternfeld, they didn't have experience. They were the identical humans working for both at the same time. Did you tell the FDA, did you make these disclosures and then allow the government to decide if there was a conflict of interest?
When we assessed the work request from the FDA, we brought professionals, our legal team, our dedicated government team, to understand first, is there a conflict of interest? We verified that the work was different.
Reclaiming my time. Mr. Sternfeld, that is you putting yourself as the czar of conflicts. Look, your scheme worked really well for McKinsey. McKinsey got contracts, Purdue got rich, and America got addicted. Since 2008, McKinsey earned $140 million in contracts from the FDA, and you did not ever disclose your work for Purdue. You did not disclose your conflicts of interest. So my question for you is, since you didn't disclose the conflicts of interest, will you return the $140 million to the FDA?
So they were working for the biggest opioid pusher on the planet, Purdue Pharma, and the FDA at the same time.
Absolutely.
The same people.
The same people at the same time. Now, it's possible, and this is their argument, that we were doing something so unrelated for the FDA to drug regulation that it didn't affect our work for Purdue on the topic of drug regulation. But the real fundamental point is you, McKinsey, doesn't get to decide. You are not, as I said to him, the conflict czar. The point of disclosure is you put these disclosures out there. You put them out there, and then the ethics experts, the American people, the FDA administrator, they decide whether or not there's a conflict of interest. So what we see here really is a big corporation substituting their profit motivation for government ethics.
You know what you plan to do in these hearings, and in this particular hearing. You've got the evidence, you go through it. How surprised are you at the way these executives respond and the way he responded today? Do you expect him to be ready with something better than he had?
Well, I mean, I think you have to hold power to account. I think that's my job, is to hold power to account. It's to say on behalf of the American people, this doesn't cut it. And that's really what it's about. They're not going to cooperate unless you make them. And so the question today was, you broke the rules. You didn't disclose these conflicts. Now, will you give the money back? And the answer, of course, was no. So we have clear next steps here, which is to make sure that they do exactly that.
These videos, I'm not sure whether it's these videos or what it is, but I have seen the facts that you are one of the very top, second only, I think, to Nancy Pelosi, successful fundraisers, campaign fundraisers in the House of Representatives. Only Nancy Pelosi raises more money than you do. Is that because people are connecting with this kind of work that they see you do, that is so clear in the way you deliver it?
Well, I certainly hope so. The only reason that I should get reelected is if people think I'm doing a good job. That's what I want to earn their support for. I don't want to earn it for my good looks or my colorful earrings. I want to earn it because I'm doing the work in Washington and in my community. So when people stop me and they say, I saw your hearing, you told my story, you raised my concern, you gave them the hell that I want to give them. That's, I think, the fundraising flows from. What I hope is that trust that I'm trying to build between me and the American people. And that should be the goal of every elected representative on both sides of the aisle.
What became very clear to me when I saw you very early in your freshman year in committee work is you knew immediately that the job is in the committee, that is where a House member can do her job. Speech making out there is one thing, but the real labor is in the committee.
Well, because oversight, the reason for that is that oversight is a key congressional function. The executive branch has work to do, but part of our work as legislators is to hold them to account. Are they doing what the law that we pass says they're supposed to do? Are corporations following the law? If they're not, then Congress might need to take action. So you simply can't pass laws. You can't decide how to vote if you don't know the state of the world. So the next time that I am considering a conflict of interest bill or a good governance bill, I'm going to think back to what that McKinsey CEO said, which is basically, I don't have to follow the rules. I make the rules. And that's going to inform how I think about legislative goals. So I think that oversight is one of the sort of most important, but maybe least used tools that we have to earn the American people's trust.
Now, redistricting has changed. Has it changed your district, or are you now in a different district as you're running for?
So I got a new number, which is pretty typical.
Right.
It's a lot of numbers in California, so we go up into the double digits. It got a new number, but I have about 65-70% new voters who have not seen my name on their ballot before. So my home city of Irvine was part of the old district. It's going to be part of the new district where I'm running. But I also have hundreds of thousands of new people to introduce myself to. And what I want them to know, what I want them to see is the work that I do in committee. It's what I did today. It's asking the tough questions, and it's demanding answers, not for me, but for the American people.
Now, you flipped a Republican seat for the Democrats. Is your new district more favorably tilted toward Republicans or Democrats?
Actually, it's very similar. It's about a third Democrat, about a third Republican, and about a third independent, no party preference. So it has a very similar demographic. Most of these communities like Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, these are traditional Republican strongholds. But I intend to earn their vote. And the reason I'm going to do it is I'm going to promise them that I'm going to stand up to power in Washington. You know, one of my opponents, you know, is a lobbyist and he's a lawbreaker. And I really try to be the opposite. I try to take lobbyist money and I try to make sure that laws are being followed, not broken.
A lobbyist and a lawbreaker versus Katie Porter. Okay, the congressional district has something to think about there. Congresswoman Katie Porter, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and it's great to have you in the studio with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.